Good day and welcome runners. I'm Coach Roberto Manje. We're here for the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon course strategy. And with me today is my co-coach and co-host, Steve Mura. Steve, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Roberto. I'm thrilled to go over the course for these runners, mile by mile, borough by borough, so you guys are comfortable and confident going into your race Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. I just came from the finish line, which is really coming along greatly. It's so exciting. There's runners from around the world just showing up, taking photos, selfies, and one thing that was both awesome but also a little bit like daunting was the countdown clock. You know, it said 1 day, 22 hours, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to be here before you know it. So.
Coming here whether or not we want to or not. Your training is done, guys. Sunday is a celebration of weeks or months of your long training, so enjoy it. Today's rest, tomorrow's rest. If you go to the expo, come see the pacers and the coaches at the pace tent to kind of near the exit of the hall, but it's a great expo. But we're going to provide great content so you guys can get to the finish line feeling happy and successful.
Exactly. But before we get to the finish line, we have to get to the start line. And fortunately, the hay is in the barn. Some people are going to be out there, like I said, seeing them running, doing shakeout runs. I know our own coach Steve's going to be doing a shakeout run later with some of our virtual runners. So I still have one more run. So maybe depending where you are travel-wise, you have maybe one more run, or you might be taking 2 days off. Whatever works for you. But the most important thing is how to get to the start line and get there prepared. So there's 3 things we like to go over at the top of every show, whether we're doing it in person, for the marathon, half marathon, and those 3 mantras are, number 1, avoid the race before the race. Number 2, oh my Lord,
nothing new on
race day.
Nothing
new on race day. And number 3, don't go out too fast. I was about to say number 3 on number 2. Yeah, so those 3 things. So let's go over the first one. Avoid the race before the race. What does that mean, Steve?
So Roberto, you guys get medals for 26.2 miles. We want to give you plenty of time to get the start line, because any sprinting or running you do to get to the crowds, to get to your tent, to get to your bus, you're not earning extra credit for that. That's going to tire you out for the race. So New York is a very busy place, even on a normal Sunday. Now add 35,000 other runners and spectators to that mix. It's going to take time to get to where you need to be. So if you're catching a cab, if you're catching an Uber, going on a subway, going on the bus, going on the ferry, get there earlier than you need to get there. We would rather have you sitting on Staten Island, in Fort Wadsworth, in your corral colors, reading a magazine and saying, I'm pretty bored right now, than panicking and trying to get to the start line on time before you miss your wave. So avoid the race before the race and get there with plenty of time so you do not miss your start, Roberto.
Excellent. And then the next one we always say, which I almost jumped out of order, is nothing new on race day. So as I said, we've seen a lot of excited runners yesterday at the expo. I just saw several more at the start line. They were all over the city. So a lot of us are excited, as you should be. There's a lot of awesome gear, a lot of swag. I'm wearing an awesome jacket I think some of you can see. But by this point, you should already know what you're going to use for the race as far as gear, what you're going to wear top, bottom, over layer, what are you going to wear, socks, shoes, etc. You should also have in mind already knowing what you're going to eat. So that's your nutrition, and that means tonight, tomorrow, breakfast, dinner, the breakfast before, the breakfast of race morning, and of course on race day, what you're going to carry as far as hydration and nutrition. So if you have that dialed in, dynamite, you're ahead of the game. If you don't, this is the time to make those last minute tweaks, but ideally you're not adding anything new, because you don't want to run the risk of consuming something, whether it's hydration or nutrition, or even just wearing something that you haven't tried and tested out through your training in the previous weeks and months throughout your long runs and workouts.
That's right. And the last one, Coach Roberto, don't go out too fast. So I want to pop up the elevation map here in a second. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to see where those major hills are on this course. We're going to go over these each ladder throughout the course, but mile 1 to 2 right there, Verrazano Bridge, that's your biggest climb you're doing, guys. But then you have 2 big hills on mile 16 and mile 24, 25. So you notice the hardest 2 are actually after the halfway point, mile 13. So if you go out too fast, because it's flat, you're having fun, it's going to be really hard on those ladder hills. So don't try to bank time, because bank equals bonk on this course. Enjoy the first part and have fun with it, but save that energy so you can get through the ladder hills of this course. So those 3 things, definitely remember those throughout the course strategy and throughout your race morning. But let's get to the start line, Coach Roberto, and there is some health and safety aspects we want to touch on as you come in to the race, because there are a few changes to our start line village and the amenities leading up to the race, Roberto.
Yeah, certainly. So, this year, for many people who know about the TCS New York City Marathon, it is the largest marathon in the world. Usually we have between 50 or so thousand finishers. This year we've actually decreased the field size in order to decrease the amount of contact points that we have. So we're going to be expecting about 35,000 finishers. And then people coming in for the expo, you have a slot time when you're coming in, and you need to show proof of vaccine. And then if you don't have proof of vaccine, then you could come and get your bib outside of the expo on Saturday, and that just needs to have a proof of a negative COVID test within the last 48 hours before the marathon. So apart from that, we're going to have 8 stations as we typically do from mile 3 to 25, but this year we're actually removing mile 5, 7, and 9, again, kind of decrease the contact point. But in change of that, at some of our 8 stations, we will have hydration stations. So for people who want to refill their own bottles, that's something that we've actually never done before. I think it's a really cool thing. That way, some people like myself, I tend to have my own bottle, and I usually go empty by mile 18. This year, I know I could refill it. So we're going to be limiting touch points. We're going to be also encouraging and mandating face covering. If you're coming to the expo, when you're traveling to the course, whether it's be a ferry or bus, as well as at the start village. And the only time that you are permitted to remove your face covering is once the race commences. And we do ask you to please, and we'll go over the course soon, if you remove your face covering on the Verrazano Bridge, please hold on to it. You can hold on to it, put it in your pocket, and have it for the end of the race. If you feel like you want to discard it, then please do so once you've crossed the bridge and you're into Brooklyn, because chances are between the crosswinds and the bridge, if you throw it down, you might actually see it land on the ground, but between all the runners' feet, it might get kicked or taken by the wind into the river, and that's something we definitely want to avoid. So the good thing is, we'll touch upon it at the end again, if you do lose your face mask for whatever reason, when you cross the finish line in the bag from hospital for special surgery, there'll be a fresh face mask there waiting for you.
That's right, Roberto. So guys, safety and health is very important in this race. You can find this graph and the one before it on our race website, nycmarathon.org. But this kind of, once again, briefly breaks down what Roberto said. Where face masks are recovering, you'll see the one place it's not needed is on the course. So you can definitely carry it with you. A lot of people will put a pocket strap along the arms. But as you come to the expo, if you haven't been yet, come pick up that race bib, New Balance gear. You will need it there. The same with other activities like Marathon Monday, finish line, and start of the course. So guys, the marathon is such a cool thing, the New York City Marathon specifically, because we start off this race with a cannon. And it's the only sporting event that actually has cannons to start it. We don't have a horn, we don't have a gun, we have a cannon, and you get Frank Sinatra on Sunday morning singing to you as you start off your celebration for all the weeks and months you did of training. And this is that first hill I was talking about before, about not going out too fast, because this is the Verrazano Bridge. And it is actually the biggest climb you're going to feel on race day. But it's actually going to be pretty easy. You don't notice it too much because you're excited, you've been tapering, the cannon goes off, all that. It is actually, some people go too fast on the Verrazano Bridge. I recommend kind of actually pulling back, maybe staying behind a group of runners or a pace team to almost put brakes on you. You don't want to go out too fast. That first mile should not be your first mile PR. You're going to be tempted to go out too fast because marathon pace is not hard. It's just hard to do for 26.2 miles. And what we see a lot of times is runners thinking that 9-minute pace actually feels easy today compared to maybe the 10-minute per mile they're planning to do. So trust your training, look at what your past training results showed you in your long runs, and take those first parts nice and easy. It is pretty crowded. Avoid kind of the weaving around runners. Just stick behind a group of runners. It will open up once you get on 4th Avenue or the streets in Brooklyn. Save that energy for the latter miles, Coach Roberto.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, one thing is this photo here is actually from previous years. So this year we've added more waves and, again, a smaller field size. So there actually should be a little bit more space for those of you who have run this race with us in the past. But also, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, give us shout-outs. Let us know where you're watching from. Is this your first marathon, your third marathon, where you're coming from? And also ask us any questions, submit your questions, and we'll get to those later on the show. But yeah, as Coach Steve just said, you can't win the race in the first mile, but you can certainly lose it or at least make improper strides towards it, pun intended, because that first mile is very steep. So go by effort. That's what our pace team will be doing. They'll be carrying sticks like this. Steve, tell us about the pace team.
Yeah, the NYRR pace team this year, guys. These are the men and women who know this course like the back of their hand. They've been vetted. They've ran this course multiple times. They know this course, so they're going to help you almost keep the brakes on you. Now, they're going to be doing even effort out there. So what that means is that varies on a bridge. They might go slower. This is the 4:15 pace sign. You'll see this. The singlets will match this. That is a 9:43 on average per mile time. So that first mile, you might see 9:50s, 9:55s. Going down the Arizona Bridge, you might see 9:30, 9:35. A lot of pacers don't usually gauge their pace that early on. They'll see where that may be mile 3 or 4 and then adjust as needed. It's just so so packed and overrun with runners usually that it's hard to stay on a specific pace that day. But this will be the average pace per mile they'll be running, knowing that uphill they're going to go a little slower, downhill a little faster. And once again, I use those pacers to slow me down because I get excited for the race. So they'll put the brakes on me. And then later on the course, which we get to, you can decide, okay, I want to stay with the pacer or I'm going to leave and go ahead of them depending on how I'm feeling. But use those pacers out there because they know the course. Every turn, every hill, every water stop, they'll get you to the finish line feeling happy and healthy.
Yeah, certainly. So right about now, we've taken care of the first 2 miles, like Coach Steve just said, whether you follow the pacers, if you have them in your corral or not, you're taking an easy effort on the uphill, and then same effort on the downhill, you'll make up the difference. And then now we're getting into Brooklyn. So this part, these next several miles that we're going to cover, I would say this is where you could actually start to lock into your pace. As Coach Steve said, those pacers are now going to try to run that 9:43 per mile because the next several miles of this course are relatively flat. You're settled. The pre-race jitters are gone. The excitement is still there, but you're like, okay, I have 2 miles under my belt. I can start to kind of settle in. So that's what you want to try to do through these miles here in Brooklyn. Coach Steve, tell us a little bit more about Brooklyn. We have 3 courses becoming 1.
Yeah, I love Brooklyn, guys. You're all running 3 different courses in Brooklyn. So you see the green kind of goes off in its end, orange and green, orange and blue on the left side of 4th Avenue, and green is on the right side of 4th Avenue as you enter there, like Roberto showed. Keep that in mind for family and friends spectating. So if you have those cheering, 4th Avenue, left side for if you're orange and blue, or in the east side if you're green, that's very important. But it's a fun part. You go through so many different neighborhoods: Bay Ridge, Sunset Park, Diker Heights, Williamsburg, Cobble Hill, Greenpoint. It is a block party, guys. When you get to mile 8, in years past, so this is where all 3 courses then end up on one course. In years past, it has been kind of crowded here. Once again, just everyone coming together. We'll see what happens this year, but if it gets crowded there, just know, oh yeah, Coach Steve said it might get crowded here. You'll know to expect that. No need to adjust your pace at all. Just keep that in mind as you come to this part of the course, but it is fun. Roberto, the next photo is a great shot of 4th Avenue coming through, and you can also see the water stations. There's volunteers in green right there. Now, these water stations are huge. They're almost a block long, guys. Go to the latter water stations if possible. It's less crowded there. The volunteers will be handing out water cups, usually in the palm of their hands, so make eye contact with that volunteer, grab that water cup. You get 1 or 2 sips. There's garbage cans later on, which you can definitely toss it on. But take your time going through those water stations early on. They can be crowded, but those latter water stations are a little bit easier to get to than the first or second table, Roberto.
Yeah, and one thing I have not mentioned at all yesterday was day 1, so maybe working out the kinks, but as a pro tip and something I learned the hard way, when you are running and you grab the cup, whether they have it in their palm of their hand or you're running by and grabbing it at the table, do pinch it, because that way you create a little bit of a funnel and you can kind of control a little bit better how much water spills out, which a little bit is normal, but also really more importantly when you get it into your mouth, creating that little funnel. Because I know in years past when I was running, not marathons, but just road races at the beginning, I would just grab the cup like I would drink at home, and of course 1 or 2 strides like that, empty cup. And then the next time I go, okay, now I gotta get to my mouth a lot quicker, so I would just go there and more or less just waterboard myself or wash my face. So make sure you just pinch it, you can control it, drink a little bit, and then of course toss it to the side. So yeah, so right now we're about 8 miles into the course. You're settled, you're following the pacers if you're with them. If not, you're just running. And one thing we mentioned earlier is that this course is a little bit more challenging on the second half. So you really want to run conservatively through Brooklyn, no matter how great you feel, and you should feel great because, as Coach Steve said, the marathon pace is easy, and the marathon itself, the pace is easy until it isn't, and you never know when that's going to happen. Ideally, that's further down the road. So these miles, I would say, like, just enjoy the crowd, celebrate, but run conservatively, because 8 miles into the course, you're essentially just 1/3 of the way. You're still so far from home. But coming up next, we're going to be running through all 5 boroughs. We started in Staten Island, we're in Brooklyn now, and coming up next is Queens.
Pulaski Bridge, guys. Pulaski is really fun to run over. Note about the bridges: if you're spectating, if you're fans of with friends and family are spectating, those bridges are the one point in the course you really can't cheer. So try to find somewhere else. Before or after the bridge are great, but as you see here, even on the picture here, you see some cameramen on the top of the bridge there, but really very few spectators on bridges. That's one place NYP does not allow spectators. But mile 13, guys, you actually see one of our pacers from last year kind of leading, I think the 330 or 335 crowd through the Pulaski Bridge. Now, you only see the sign and say, I'm halfway done. It's great. We're almost there, guys, right? Kind of. Mile 13 is mathematically halfway there, but as coaches, we always tell runners that halfway point to just how you're feeling, to say, I'm going to keep running with my pacer here or not, that's mile 20. So keep that, stay with that pace, stay with that pacer. You're not making any drastic moves at this part of the course. You're still in that long run pace, conservative, not making any big moves. And kind of keep in check, how am I feeling? Still nutrition, you're still nutrition on game. You're still keeping your pace nice and consistent. And the guy in the middle here is what you want to feel like. He's having a great day. He's pacing this properly. He's out there enjoying the run. He's looking the wrong way because you want to look to the left, actually. It's a great view of the city, as you see.
He's looking at us.
He's looking at us. He's saying, hey, guys, I'm ready for my photo op. But enjoy this part of the course because you are going to be entering the latter part of the course, which does have a little more challenging course, hills up there.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one thing Coach Steve said, and I have to reiterate, is that at the halfway point, unless you pace it poorly, which if you're listening to this, you won't be doing, you should feel relatively similar to how you felt maybe at 10K, 6.2 miles in. So take that in stock. When you get to 10K, think, okay, I feel good. I want to feel this way when I get to the halfway point. And the longer you can feel good, the better, instead of getting to the halfway point and thinking, oh boy, am I going to have a positive split? Which a positive split means that your second half of the marathon is slower than your first half. So ideally, for even a course like New York, you want to try to run even splits or negative split. Negative split means your first half is maybe 2 hours and your second half is 1:58, obviously depending on what your goal is. So get to that halfway point feeling as good as you can, knowing that there's still plenty of race to go and plenty of time to make up pace that you might have lost if that's the case. So we can't hammer that point home enough, because a lot of people think, okay, I'm just going to run as hard as I can to the halfway point and I'm just going to hold on. And that's not a good strategy for marathon in general, but certainly not for marathon like New York with the hills that await in the second half. But before we go to the second half, we're going to have some shout outs, questions, so let's hear from the audience. Oh, Jordy, hello, Steve and Roberto. I think that's my friend Jordy. Hello,
hey, Jordy.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, Mickey saying good luck. Well, thank you, Mickey, and good luck to you if you're watching or running. Mackenzie, Rochester, first marathoner.
Yay.
All right, you're our first marathoner of this segment today, so hope to get a bunch. Oh, Laura, another from Hoboken, your now adopted state.
Yeah.
First marathon. Go for it.
Lisa, also a first marathon. Alito's nerves are good, Lisa. Use those. That means you're doing something important out there. So use them to your advantage. Great job. I'm glad you're here. That's a Maria, Boogie Down Bronx. I love it. Maria, welcome. I cannot wait to get to your borough on this course strategy. And then Nora, third-time runner from Queens. You should sit up here next time with us, Nora, because you're becoming an expert at running the marathon. And then I'll let you take Alex.
Okay, Alex, la mejor experiencia deportiva 2019. So Alex is saying this is the best sporting experience, and I believe he ran in 2019. So
love it.
Gracias, Alex. Dietmar, guten Tag from Deutschland. So greetings from Germany. We had another German yesterday. I guess I get the Spanish and the Germans. No worries.
Catherine, my first marathon. A lot of first timers. I love it. This is a great chat for first timers. So enjoy it. Gigi, good luck to all the runners. I agree, Gigi. Great job. Hopefully you'll be cheering or running on Sunday. Christina, first marathon from Brooklyn. Christina, enjoy running through your borough on Sunday. It's a lot of fun running through Brooklyn. Maybe by your house. I'm not sure, but we'll see you out there.
She's had plenty of support. Great. So thank you. Keep the shout outs coming. Let us know your first marathon or not. And now the first question. I'm going to read it. I guess I'll ask you, Steve. Mackenzie wants to know, will pace teams be in each wave? Mackenzie, great question. So as we said, our pace team will be out there. They're running even efforts. They'll be in every wave, yes, but not every corral. So if you're home right now, you can go to our website, nycmarathon.org. And you can go to the Start tab, and you'll see pace teams. They'll let you know where the pace team is starting on the day. Like I said, they're not in every corral, but where, all the 4 hours and 15-minute runners will have this pacer in that corral. If you have not gone to the expo yet, you can also visit the pacers and the coaches at the pace team booth. It's near the exit, kind of by the MasterCard booth. You can't miss it. You can get a pace band from them. You can also talk to some of the pacers and see what their strategy is on race day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, we have Fabian. Can you move to a slower start corral in the same wave?
Yeah, Fabian, you can move back. Any runner can move back to different color, different wave, different start, you name it. As long as you're going to the higher bib number, it also applies, Fabian. Let's say you're running with a friend or family member. As long as you move to the higher bib number, so Roberto's bib 1,000, I'm 2,000. He can come with me, but I can't go with him.
There you go. Come with me, Steve.
Jordy asked Roberto, I'll read it to you. Jordy says, I'm in green, wave 2, corral A. My wife is in green, wave 2, corral F. Can we go back and start with her in corral F, or can we both move to the blue?
All right. Well, you just
took that one, yeah.
Yeah, you just answered it. So the question is yes. I mean, the answer is yes, Jordy. You could join Mary Shell. I actually know his wife as well.
Oh, perfect.
Shout out there. As long as you move to the one of the higher number of the two. But you can't go to blue because neither of you are in blue. Okay. All right, we got one more question coming in. Submit your questions. Lisa, do you have any tips for conserving heat on Staten Island? Steve?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. So, we look at temperature for Sunday, race time, we're seeing 50, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you look before that at 5, 6 a.m., it's like 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So you want to stay warm out there. 2 things, layers, layers, layers. I guess that's 3 things. Layers, layers, layers. And then put something for the ground before the race starts. So look at any clothing you have that you don't want anymore. You can discard that. We partners with Goodwill Industries. We'll donate all that stuff after the race. So any hoodies, sweatpants, sweatshirts. Some people are bringing heat sheets that you don't need anymore. Are great to stay warm. More than you think you need is always ideal. Hand warmers, hat, gloves, that kind of stuff is great. And then staying dry out there. The ground is sometimes wet, and also just to stay warm, you want to stay off the ground as much as possible. So plastic bags, once again, old heat sheets are great. Something you can lay down, sit down on to rest your legs, but you're not going to get wet from the ground is important too. But once again, everything is donated after the race to Goodwill Industries.
Yeah, that reminds me, Steve. Can I borrow your favorite outfit?
Yeah, right? Yeah, I'll give you this jacket after race.
Yeah, I'll just borrow clothing from you and never give it back.
I lost it.
All right, we have, I believe, one more question.
All right, Mark says, where are honey stingers? What mile, Roberto?
They're miles 12 and 18. All right. Look, I had to close my eyes to visualize. I'm putting myself on the course. Yeah. But yeah, that's where Honey Stinger will be. Great product. Hopefully you've used it before. If not, grab it and give it another shot in another race. And my producers tell me we're on our third last question. I'm loving it.
Keep my straight.
Yeah. Okay, we got Hirschband. Any tips on when to consume energy gels, nutrition, etc. during the race? Do you have a personal preference? I think we could both answer this. You take the
Yeah, I
first
think
stab.
this is personal preference. You ask 100 runners, their answer, they give you 100 different answers. It really comes down to what you did in your training. So our advice always is you do what you did in training, but hopefully that is also a time-based nutrition plan, not miles-based. So you're always going to take it once again every 30 minutes. Let's just say that's your goal. That's what worked in training. That works for your stomach. You're going to do that in the race. So maybe one in the corrals, and every 30 minutes you're going to take that gel. It could be sooner, maybe earlier. It's easier to digest earlier on in the race. But you're not going to change the morning of to 45 minutes or an hour because the guy next to you, that's what they're doing. So some people do miles. That's okay. We just prefer time because the time's consistent throughout the race, unlike mileage. Will affect the run. It'll take you longer to get to different mileage throughout the course. So that's what I suggest. And also, once again, nothing new in race days. So the last question, Honey Stinger will be out there 12 and 18. If you've never taken Honey Stinger gels, do not take them. Keep running past them and bring your own, or have family members or friends hand you them on the course at various parts. But if you do have Honey Stingers, those will be out there for you. Every kind of flavor, caffeine and non-caffeine, Roberto.
Yeah, excellent. I actually used Honey Stinger for our 12-miler 18-miler long run that we did in the park about a month ago now. So, and yeah, I guess piggybacking on Steve, I also go by minutes versus miles, and the reason is, again, time is consistent. But the one thing I will say, everybody's going to be out there for different times. You might be running a 3-hour marathon, 4-hour marathon, 5, etc. So even then, allow yourself the flexibility to say, like, okay, maybe for the first hour or the first 2 hours or 3 hours, depending on, I'm going to go every 30 minutes, I'm going to take a gel, every 35 minutes, I'm going to drink, whatever it is, but also allow yourself the flexibility to adjust on that and not just stay rigid on that, because maybe as you get later on, you actually need to shorten that window because maybe you're out there so much longer that you need to take nutrients in, and that's something that I always play with on my long runs. I'll say, for the first 90 minutes, I'm going to go every 30 minutes, so that means I might have 3 or 2 gels, but then beyond that, if I'm running maybe a 20 miler or 21 miler, I might say every 25 minutes or something. That way I don't deprive myself. But yeah, everybody's different, as you said.
I do want to give a quick plug. We did a chat with our partners at HSS about pre-race nutrition just before this. So after this chat, if you have questions about your race day nutrition, it's on our Facebook page. You can go back to it and look at that recording after this chat. It's a really cool conversation about what to eat before, after, and during for those races with actual nutritionists that can answer those questions specifically.
Excellent. So returning to the course, last time or previously on Course
Strategy.
It's like a TV show. Yeah. So we had entered our third borough of the day, Queens. We're not there for too long, but Queens, Long Island City, they show up and they really cheer you on. But then we enter our fourth borough of the day, which is Manhattan, which we enter and exit and enter again because the race obviously finishes there. So it's a little bit of a tease, but we enter Manhattan via the famous Queensboro Bridge. There's so much that we could say about that, but Steve, kick us off.
Yeah, the Queensboro Bridge, I always find people love it or hate it, and they love and hate it for the exact same reasons. This is the flyby, guys. You're actually on the lower part of the bridge, though, so imagine, once again, you're going on the middle of the bridge. Those who maybe are on the green start will familiar, similar to the bottom of the Verrazano Bridge. It is a little darker than you expect. Once again, you're in the lower part. It sometimes can be windy. It can be also, there are no spectators, like I said before, on the bridge. But this one's just so long that you don't hear anyone cheering. All you hear is a pitter-patter of feet behind you. Look at this photo. You can kind of see that, what you're feeling. You're on one side of the bridge. No spectators there. So once again, you like it because it's solitude, but you don't like it because it's solitude. But it is a calm before the storm, guys, because directly after this is First Avenue. And the reason people love First Avenue is why they come back every single year and they sign up to run this race every single year. How fun First Avenue, because it's a cheer tunnel built for you. If you have your name on your shirt, it is super awesome to have every single person from top of balconies to the street cheer your name. But this is all, the Queensboro Bridge is a part where you can kind of also assess how you're feeling. You know, take stock of your body. You're running up the hills by effort, so keep that in mind. You're not trying to sprint up the hill as fast as possible to get over with. You want to run by effort, so your pace will drop. That 4:15 pacer will drop a few seconds up that bridge, but they also know the course so well that they're going to pick up that lost time going down the hill, and so will you if you pace it properly.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, I kind of fall in that category that Coach Steve was talking about of like, I love it, hate it. You know, it's one of my favorite parts of the course because of the solitude, opportunity to kind of be with my thoughts and kind of feel like for the first time you're kind of kindred with your fellow runners because there's nobody else kind of pushing you through. But of course, it is about almost a mile-long climb. It's gradual, but it's forever long in the bridge. You're just looking straight ahead. You're like, where does this bridge end? But as Coach Steve said, you know, you get through that. You kind of hold back a little, go on effort, and then you're rewarded by, ideally, you keep the same effort and you make up the time. But most people, and I've been saying this a lot lately, for my last 4 or 5 years running the marathon, everybody I pace, we get to that point, I've told them about it, and they inevitably run away from me, and it's maybe half a mile or so till I catch back up to them, just run the same effort on First Avenue. So I'm not sure if you could hear that at home, folks, but everything is okay. Don't fear for our safety.
All right. We're going to keep going.
Okay, we'll be back in a minute just to make sure everything is okay. Thank you. All right, folks, we're back. Everything's okay. Fortunately, the building's not on fire, but we're conducting a test. So if you're at home, really worried for us, we are okay.
We made it.
And we want to make sure that you're okay. So where were we? We were on First Avenue, or about to come onto First Avenue. So as I said, running down the back part of Queensboro Bridge, on that same casual effort, you'll pick up a lot of pace, a lot of speed. You make up the distance, but just make sure that you run the same effort and not go into overdrive, because it's so easy to have that mile, about 16 or so miles into the race, be your fastest mile thus far, and that should not be the case. The elites might do that, but that's because they don't care about the finishing time. They're just going for the win. They're racing each other, but you won't be doing that. So you come around, and I keep quoting Coach Ben, about a 270-degree turn off the off-ramp onto First Avenue. Steve, tell us about First Avenue.
It is a lot of fun, guys. As you notice, though, this image, it does show it, and we'll show the elevation map a little bit. It is slight uphill, so keep that in mind. Your energy, you don't want to go fast because of the crowds and the excitement, and also just the negative quietness through the loudness of First Avenue. So not just might run fast, but you might run fast uphill. Those are two things we don't want you to do, especially at miles 16, 17, 18 of a marathon. So always watch your pace and stick with the ones. Again, you can stick with your pace team leader. They're going to put those brakes on you. You might say, why are you slowing down, pacer? They're not. They're actually just keeping a consistent effort and throughout the course. So they're watching their watch. They know what they're doing. So use them out there if you can, guys. You can find it for Roberto put a great circle around our water stations out there. Use them. Once again, they're at every mile between 3 and 25, besides mile 5, 7, and 9. They're blocks long, both sides you can see here, so go to either side and go to the ladder tables. And as you make your way through Manhattan, you're going to get later on at First Avenue. I always find as you get in the Bronx, it does get a little less crowded, so you can kind of, once again, if you felt like you're going out too fast, readjust how you're feeling, and you're going to enter the Bronx, Roberto. And as you come into the Bronx, it is a part where a lot of our training has peaked at for a lot of, especially new first-time runners. Yeah,
exactly. You enter the Bronx, so as Coach Steve showed, and my awesome illustration work, I did not go to art school, by the way. First Avenue is a gradual incline, so between that and the fact that you're 16, 17, 18, 19 miles in, you're going to feel that. But what I tend to tell runners that to watch out for is this right here. The Willis Avenue Bridge is your introduction to the Bronx. So it's a cute little bridge most times of the year. I drive it. I've run it last Sunday. But this part of the race is a small incline, and it's actually long enough that you will feel it. So again, if you feel your pace slipping there, that's okay. Again, if you're fortunate enough to be with one of our pace teams, then they'll tell you like, hey, the pace is okay. We're just running on effort, because you will make up for that. But the Bronx also introduces us, as Coach Steve just said, to most likely the longest distance that a lot of us have covered in training, which is okay. It's normal, and that brings us to mile 20. So the 20th mile, as Coach Steve was saying earlier, this is more of our physiological halfway point that we want to think of. So when I said earlier, get to halfway point, the 13.1 mile mark, ideally feeling as good as you felt at the 10K mark. Well, if you could get to the 20 mile mark, 32K or so for our European audience, if you get around 30, 32K feeling as good as you felt at 13.1 miles or the halfway point, you are golden. If you don't, well, that's also okay, because again, it's a long distance. It's okay to be tired, but there's a difference between being tired because of the distance and the duration, or being tired because of little faux pas, like I went out too fast, I surged on Queensboro, I've been running the upbridge sections too hard. So get there ideally looking like our fellow over here, who has energy for days. And you know what, one of these days, maybe later after this chat, I'll actually look up, because I am curious to see how he finished. Hopefully he finished as well as he looks here, because in mile 20, we're only in the Bronx for about a mile or so. We kind of turn a few corners, but the good thing about the Bronx, they show up, they have DJs, music, they're really happy to have you there. Yeah, and our group training coaches, shout out to them, they'll be out there at mile 20. You'll see them with his neon jackets on the left side right around mile 21, right before you exit the Bronx. So, but that's it. That's more or less how you are in the Bronx, and then after that, you can kind of sniff home. Sniff home, guys. You're going to exit the Bronx, the Madison Avenue Bridge, and you're going to come up to Fifth Avenue. You're back in Manhattan. The last time we're going to switch bridges or anything like that. You're going to see ahead of you guys, as you come back in Manhattan, a little park. It's got some trees. You're going to say to yourself, I made it. I'm in Central Park. I'm so close. But don't be fooled. Those first trees you see straight ahead of you are Marcus Garvey Park. It's a really cool park. Come back later after the marathon and visit it, or check it out maybe on Monday after the marathon. But it is not Central Park. Don't make that mistake. You're going to make a right-hand turn, left, right, just to get around the park. Then you're going to end up on Fifth Avenue once again, but this is kind of a different side of Fifth Avenue, and it is probably the hardest part of the New York City Marathon course. And the reason it's the hardest part is because you have a little hill that is unexpected at the point. It starts about 110th Street and goes to 90th Street, so it's very, very long. And once again, if we went to run this hill right now, you'd say, it's not a hill, Steve. I didn't notice anything. But the placement of it
And the fact also it's a hill that's not on a bridge, which is just unusual for this course, kind of stands out. So keep that in mind as you are on Fifth Avenue after Marcus Garvey Park. Adjust your pace. You're going to go a little slower up that hill. But the really great thing is that is pretty much the very last hill you're going to run the day. We've always been telling you to watch your pace, watch your pace, watch your pace. And one of the reasons is because of that hill. It sneaks up on you. I didn't know about it the first time I ran in 2010. And I got to the hill. I tried to keep the same pace I was doing.
You didn't watch the course strategy?
I did not. They didn't have a course strategy that time.
Bummer.
I tried to do the same pace, and it just hurt me. You know, confidence dropped. You know, I finished, but it definitely should have gone easier on that hill. But you're going to take Fifth Avenue into Central Park, guys, and this is one of my favorite parts of the course. Roberto, into 90th Street, Central Park.
It's one of your favorite parts. Like, I almost have a fear. I have a healthy fear / respect for this. Every runner who I've worked with one-on-one or via group training, even virtually, knows that I always harp on Fifth Avenue. I ran the course, the last 8 miles of the course last Sunday, only just to kind of come and pay my respects really to Fifth Avenue because, as you said, it's a part of the course about a mile long that just doesn't feel that long and doesn't feel that hard any other time. But the first Sunday in November, every year it becomes like Mount Kilimanjaro. So I would say if you could get through this section right here or get to this section feeling good, the rest of the course, I would say, is great because, as Coach Steve said, you enter the park at East 90th. You have about 2 miles or so to go, predominantly downhill. You know, if for those of us in New York or familiar with New York and Central Park, you've heard of Cat Hill, you've heard of the Harlem Hills, the Three Sisters, etc. We're not touching any of that. We are touching Cat Hill, but unlike most races, we're not running up it. We're actually running it down. So that's a nice, gentle grade. You know, your legs are going to be probably a little bit fatigued. That's okay. Let the hill take you because we're in the park for a little bit. The race finishes in the park, but once again, another teaser. We actually have to exit the park before entering it on the west side.
That's right. We go into Central Park South, guys. This is your view. This is the runner's view, what you're going to be seeing Sunday as you exit Central Park. You got the famous hotels to your left-hand side, Central Park to your right hand, and straight ahead of you is Columbus Circle, guys. And you see a little statue right there. What I want you to do is take Invisible Lasso and wrap it around it and have it pull you in because you're giving everything you have right now. You're also exhausted. Glycogen is gone in your body. You're giving everything you got. You're also remembering why you signed up for this marathon. You're raising money for a charity. You're trying to beat a time or a personal goal, which is to finish. You're going to pull yourself in to that Columbus Circle statue ahead of you and just push yourself, push yourself, push yourself because you are so close within less than a mile. You're going to make a right-hand turn into Central Park one more time. You have the slightest, I'm not even going to call it a hill, I'm just going to call it a speed bump for you. You're going to pass all the flags on the left and right side. The crowd from the grandstands is going to be cheering for you, and you're going to finish with your arms in the air as you cross that finish line. I don't want to see anyone cross that finish line stopping their watch with their head down. I want to see actually we always say mimic what the professionals do, so let's mimic what the professionals do on the finish line of the course. You're going to see them sprinting as hard as they can through the finish line.
There seems to be a tape delay.
I feel like I'm saying it over and over and over, but nothing's happening.
Just try to will it. But yeah, there we go.
There you go. One thing, once again, as she comes into the finish line, you don't see her stop her watch. The hands in the air, and this is something everyone can do. Hands in the air, not stopping the watch, and celebrate your victory, guys, especially if it is your first marathon. We keep your time officially. So no matter what your Strava or your Garmin or your Apple Watch says, you can stop it 5-10 seconds later, Coach Roberto.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, what I was doodling earlier, for those of you at home wondering why I'm an art school dropout or if I am an art school, it's your why. So, you know, this whole section to the finish, this whole section on Central Park South is going to be challenging. And the last day or so, I've been quoting Shalane Flanagan, who was with us a few days ago, and she said, you know, the first half, run with your legs, the second half with your heart. I would say, you know, run more than the first half with your legs, but, you know, once you get into that last section.
Flanagan, come on.
Yeah. I mean, when you're going to win the marathon, you can say what you want. Most of us are not winning the marathon. If you are, more power to you, and hopefully we've helped you. But, yeah, I would say, like, you know, that last mile or so on Central Park South, entering the park, you know, you can see the runners here, arms, okay, I'm drawing here now. You know, arms in the air. They're celebrating. They're thinking about their why, and that's why I say run. You know, think about your why, and that's the reason. Whether it's a loved one, family, friends, your own reasons, overcoming things, or you know, this is your first marathon and you never thought you could run one. So this is the celebration, the culmination. That, as Coach Steve said, it's better to get these sort of photos right here than a photo where you're just looking down at your beautiful. And you know, we have your beautiful forehead at the top of your head. So, but yeah, you just finished the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon, the 50th marathon, the 50th running, outstanding. But now that's not the end of the race, or at least the race is done, but like there's a continuing experience that we typically call the 27th mile.
Yeah, similar to how you have to do things before you start the race, there's a lot to do after the race. So guys, as you finish, you can be handed your medal, so please take a photo with that, enjoy it, celebrate your moment that you completed the race in. You're also going to get a bag. Partners from HSS provide that bag there in that runner's left-hand side, your right. In that bag, you have Gatorade water. Try your best to start taking those in as soon as you can. You probably aren't going to want any solids because you just had a wild brunch the last 4 hours of the day with gels and Gatorade. So once again, as soon as you can, take some liquids and also then take the solids. There's pretzels, there's apples, there's some other supplements in there that can help you recover a little bit better. Every runner will get a heat sheet or a poncho like that runner right there does. And if you did check your bag a few days beforehand, you will get that bag as well. Now the important part is we want you to walk a lot. We're going to have to ask you to walk from the finish line and you're going to exit at 72nd Street. And so make sure you just keep walking. Don't sit down. If you sit down, it's going to be very hard and painful to stand up. And the last thing we want you guys to do is make a post-race plan. Have a post-finish plan. There's 35,000 runners that are finishing the race. Now, all those people trying to make a cell phone call or send a text message, it's not going to go through. So make your plan now. It could be at Dunkin' Donuts or another coffee shop. It could be at a hotel lobby, not even yours, just a hotel nearby. It can be at a subway station. It can be in a specific street corner on a specific side of the street. This map you're seeing right here, all that blue is frozen zone, meaning only the runners can go in that section. So I say anywhere west. So once again, I'm going to meet my family at Broadway and 65th Street or whatever it is on the northwest corner. I like to go, have my family and friends in a restaurant maybe or a bar, and they can have food while they wait for me. And then when I come, my food can be waiting for me. It's great. But once again, anywhere you go, if you need to go to the east side, you can go north or south to get to the east side. But once again, anywhere is now. I want you to make those post-race plans. Don't wait till tomorrow night.
Yeah, and the one thing we mentioned earlier, the app. You have great information there about the race for spectators. Different things about the road closures, the course itself, friends and family reunion, things like that. But on top of that, your friends and family could track you. They could put your name, your first and last name. They could put your bib number. And throughout the race, what's going to happen is if I'm tracking Steve, it'll say Steve has just crossed 5K. He's projected to finish at this time, 10K, etc. So you'll get real-time updates of how Steve is doing. Don't track him; he's not running, but it's just a hypothetical. But yeah,
running though.
Yeah. But also don't track me. Save your data. But yeah, so you track your friends and loved ones, and then when they cross the finish line, you'll obviously know. But then you'll get one more update as they're getting ready to exit the park. That way, if you're not relying on your cell phone because either the battery died or cell phone saturation, you know, like, okay, they are officially done with the finish line, shoot and walk off. So maybe I can expect them in 20 minutes at your predetermined station. So that's actually it for the course strategy portion. Now we're going to go to some shout-outs, and then, of course, if there are any questions, keep them coming. All right, so Lisa from Boston, this is her first marathon. Lisa, we welcome you this weekend.
Noren, we got to see you there. I can't wait to see you as well.
We got Dolly, first marathon. All right, shout out to the first marathoners.
Maggie celebrating my 50th. Happy birthday.
Yeah. We got Tiffany, first marathon, calling in or watching from Riverview, Florida.
We got MQ, another first-time marathoner. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Kirsten from Chicago, where Steve is from. Second New York City Marathon. Welcome, Kirsten.
A lot of Chicagoans here today.
Yeah.
Josette, I'll be volunteering Sunday. Thank you, Josette, and all the volunteers out on the course, finish line, start line, at the expo. You guys are amazing, and you make this marathon happen. So thank you, Josette, and everyone out there volunteering.
Yeah. Christina from South Florida, first New York City Marathon. Christina, you'll have lovely weather come Sunday. Okay, now we're going to be heading to some questions. I guess I'll read the first one. From Maggie, weekly hiking 3,000 to 4,000 foot elevation. Would that help me prep for bridges?
Yeah, it's not going to hurt. Ideally, I would love you to, because it is a running event. Running your long runs on hills is going to be more beneficial. Also, course specifics of, the best way to prepare for the New York City Marathon is, during the first mile of your run, you start with a hill, and then a mile 16 you have a hill, and mile 32 you have, or latter miles, any long runs you have hills. Also, people do hill repeats, but that's not going to hurt you. All your hiking. It's definitely it'll help you. So it'll help you, but there's other ways also during your training periods that you can do more hills. Yeah. I'll read it for you. Sarah says, can you give any more tips for picking up water cups? I don't want to spill water on volunteers or other runners, but also I don't want to stop. You mentioned the water before, so this is a good question.
Yeah, certainly, Sarah. Unfortunately, I'm too mic'd up and wired up here. You can't see at home, so if I get up, I'm going to take down half the set. But and because what I would like to show is just the way I do it, but essentially I'll try to mimic it as I watch myself on the screen. So you're running, and the water aid stations here, the volunteer might have it in their hand or it might be on the table. Regardless, what I tend to do is I go to grab it, but I don't just take it right away. I actually grab it and let my momentum take me. So I grab it with my hand and I keep running. So I end up, when I actually lift it off the hand or the table, is usually like this. So that way, it's physics. If I'm coming in with too much force and I act on it, I might spill it, I might push it. But if I just grab it, and as soon as I grab it, I pinch it. But I grab it and I haven't quite lifted yet. I just let my momentum continue to take me forward, and then I bring it in. And again, like I said earlier, a little bit of spillage is okay, but I'm kind of mimicking with my hand. I pinch it. I have a little bit of a funnel, and now I could run. And I usually don't take too many arm swings. I've done this. I bring it here, take a sip, keep running, take another sip, and that's it. And that's the thing. When you're running a marathon, whether it's your first or 50th, we don't tend to drink a lot at each aid station. It's just a little bit to keep our mouths from getting too dry. Sometimes it's just to wash out some of the gels or goo, whatever you're drinking. And also just, it's good sometimes just to swish water in your mouth, but you're not typically drinking too much. So if you get a cup that is usually somewhat full, it's okay for almost half of it to spill out. The important thing is that you pinch it and you get the amount that you need in your mouth, and also that you don't, miss it all of it. Because the worst thing, which happens to all of us, so if it happens to you, no worries, is you kind of flub up an aid station where like you spill the cup or you grab it, you go to drink, and it's relatively empty. Hopefully that helps, Sarah. Okay, Fabian. How much faster is marathon pace than long run training pace? Great question.
Yeah, Fabian. So marathon pace, once again, is not that fast. You can mostly do it. Marathon pace is slower than half marathon pace. It's something you can probably do. Right now in your sleep. It's just hard to do for 26.2 miles. So look back at your training. What is that comfortable pace for you in terms of your past long runs? And what there are a lot of also, you can go online and kind of put in maybe past race distances or past race times that you did a half marathon or a 10K, and it'll give you a nice pace of what that should be. Now also keep in mind, it might give you a 9 minutes as your race pace. You're not doing 9 minutes through the whole race. You're not doing one pace the whole race. It might start off at 9:30, and then it might also be an 8:30 on the downhill. So it's more of an average. I like to give runners that I'm coaching personally, your marathon pace is going to be a 9:30 through a 9:47 or something like that. It's a range that you can stay through the whole race, and you can start off the slow run and gradually go to the faster run throughout the race. Yeah,
that's great advice. And what I'll add to that is that apart from the hills, you never know also what the winds might do, crosswinds, headwinds. So if you have a windy day, it's not necessarily the prediction for Sunday, although maybe on the Verrazano Bridge and a couple of the cross bridges, just run on effort, because the last thing you want to do is also just lean into the wind, run really hard just to maintain the same pace, because that might look good on paper on your wrist, but the chances are that same as if you're pushing up an uphill, you're exerting more effort than you're aware of, and by the time you're aware of it, it's too late.
Good question, though. Next we have a question from MQ. Any tips for controlling chafing?
Vaseline has been around since I was born. I'm not sure how long. It's not a history lesson, but it's been around for at least 30 plus years. But yeah, Vaseline. There's obviously different brands out there. I think like Body Glide, but I actually have both Body Glide and a stick of Vaseline. And yeah, you just roll it on to your problem areas that you know that you may be chafing, or areas that you have chafed in the past. And it's really important, because once you start chafing in a marathon or in a long run, and that's something that's happened to many of us, it's too late. You obviously have to continue running, and afterwards you could get some pretty savage burns. So I would say Vaseline. Yeah. And the good thing is, at our medical aid stations, I know I saw it in 2019 in several different places, they do have like lollipop type sticks or popsicles type sticks with Vaseline for runners who might need that. So don't feel like if you forget for whatever reason, your race is done. But ideally, you kind of put that on in the morning when you're putting on your race kit.
Good question.
Kenneth, any tips on how to push forward to a pacer in an earlier corral? Steve?
Yeah, Kenneth, so you can't really push forward. You can't move forward in any of the corrals, no matter where the pacer you want to run with or what you're in. Runners cannot move forward. We can only move backwards. So if your pacer's, the one corral ahead of you, let's say, if you're in B and the pacer you want is in A, you can maybe start at the front of B, and you'll see the sign. The sign that the pacer started with is actually a lot bigger than the one I brought with me. It's this huge printed sign. They're actually going to drop that once they start moving. So you'll see them, and they're going to carry the smaller sign through the whole race. I wouldn't catch up to them, because then you'd be running a lot faster than that 9-minute pace. You'll be an 8:30 catch them. But just stay the same distance from them along the course. You might miss them on turns, but you'll see them on 4th Avenue. You probably always see them 1st Avenue. You see them, so check in with them. But once again, if you're an F and they're an A, you're not going to see them throughout the whole course. Once again, if you're at the expo, you can go see our pacers and the coaches. We give away free pace bands you can wear on your wrist. Basically, they give you even splits through the whole course. So if you want to, once again, a 4-hour finish time, what time should your watch say for mile 10? It'll tell you what that should say, so you know how far off, fast or slow you need to be to get to that finish time. Now those are all even splits, so it's okay if you're a little behind on the Verrazano Bridge or ahead on the Verrazano Bridge, depending on what part of the bridge you're on. But you can pick those up if you don't have the pacer in your corral. And like we said before, all runners can move back, you just can't move forward in the corrals.
Excellent. Steve, per usual, basic questions, you nailed them.
Jonathan asks, if you're consuming gels, is it important to use salt tablets or
electrolyte?
Not my word today.
Electrolyte
tablets.
I wish I had that sort of help yesterday, but I got you. Yeah, so again, the first part of that question is nothing new on races. So if you haven't consumed it or practiced with it before, I wouldn't experiment. That being said, salt tablets are a relatively innocuous thing that is safe for everybody within reason. So, if you're later on in the latter stages of the race, in many years, I always seem to pay attention to the latter stages at the medical aid stations when they seem to become busier. So I have seen people out there taking salt tablets. So I would say, preemptively make sure that your hydration drink is electrolyte rich. So, obviously the course provides Gatorade first and water. Water is something universal. We'll have experience drinking it, but it's not as great as an electrolyte heavy drink that's going to help replace the nutrients that we naturally lose, and like sodium through sweating. And even on a race, like on a day like we're predicted on Sunday, where temperatures are going to be pretty ideal in the mid-high 40s to low 50s for running, you still will sweat because you're still exerting effort. And again, we're all going to be out there for different amounts of time, and no two runners are the same. Some runners are just heavier sweaters. You can do that at a test at a lab, but just in general, you kind of know if you're a heavier sweater or not. So what I would say on that is maybe carry salt tablets with you and use them maybe somewhere around the halfway point. That way you're using them for the latter stages, because much like hydration, much like nutrition, if you wait till you're hungry or you wait till you're thirsty, it's essentially a little bit too late when it comes to performance, because that means your body has been telling you and it's been maybe redlining in a depletion state that, like, hey, we're thirsty, we're hungry, and now we've escalated it to the level where you now are aware of it and doing something about it. So it's like, yeah, you're helping yourself, but it's a little bit too late. You're in a little bit of a deficit. So I would say carry them with you and use them maybe around halfway point. And by halfway point, you will obviously have already taken your drinks, taken your gels, at least maybe 2 or even potentially 3 times.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah. Maggie? Yep. Okay, Steve, Maggie wants to know, what food or snacks are at the stops?
Aid station, I'm guessing maybe stops, I guess. So there'll be water and Gatorade every mile between 3 and 25, except mile 5, 7, and 9 is the aid stations out there. We'll also have honey stingers at mile 12 and 18, every gel, every flavor, and every caffeine, non-caffeine. This year there is not bananas along the course, so if you expect those from years past, we will not have bananas on the course. And also, it's not food related, but no sponges out there on the course. So that's kind of, I guess, what we mean by stops. So, and if you need anything more, bring it with you. Maybe have a family or friend along the course that you might know that can drop some off for you.
Yeah, and the great thing, too, about New York is that it's a New York City Marathon. New York City, for those of you out-of-towners, is littered with bodegas. So one of our coaches has mentioned how in years past they would run the marathon and almost use the bodegas as their own aid stations, or certainly on their long runs. So that's always another option. Okay, next question.
Next we have Sarah. Will there be water bottle fillings in addition to cups at hydration stations, Roberto?
Yeah, so interesting thing about that, I just got late breaking news in my earpiece, and I actually redacting what I said earlier. So you will be able to fill up your water bottle at any aid station, but you'll have to do that using the cups there. There actually won't be hydration stations like, maybe a hose or something like you might have in your office that you can put your bottle and fill it up. So if you want to do that, which is, encouraged for people who feel more comfortable drinking out of the bottle throughout, you just have to take the cups and fill it in. So that's the latest update. So apologies for anybody out there who might have been misled by the earlier information. Oh, okay. Kirsten, do we have any kinesiology? No, you know what? Do we have any K-tape at the medical stations? Not doing this again.
Good question there. They do have tapes at the medical station. I don't know if it's KT, it's a brand, so they have similar medical tape at the aid stations. They also, if you have not been to the expo yet, there is a booth here for KT tape. They can also tape you up beforehand, so it's done by someone who knows what they're doing. So definitely check in medical stations if you need to, but also at the expo you can do that as well.
Yeah.
We have Elise. Are pacers running the same pace at all times, or do they adjust? Yeah, so they'll be doing even efforts out there. So that means uphill they'll go a little bit slower, downhill a little faster. They'll try to also call out every mile their splits and how over under they are. Now, if they're going faster than maybe they are, maybe they're doing a 9:09 and they say, we're at 9 minutes, we're a little faster. They might plan that. So don't freak out that you're going too fast, that they're not going to adjust. Once again, they know the course ahead of you. They also adjust maybe what's going beyond them. So they're going to call it out just so you know, but they know their plan of how they're going to run it. And if they're a few seconds ahead of it, going faster, that is okay. They know it's coming up, but they're also taking you into account and try to keep the group together as well as much as possible. But talk to your pacer before the race. So, we have pacers from 3 hours all the way to 6 hours every 5 minutes. So I always say the extremes are 3 hour and the 6 hour while they're doing the same race. They might have different approaches, kind of. So talk to the pacer beforehand and see what their exact strategy is, because they're all humans. They all know the course really well, but just ask them and what their plans are for each hill and part of the course.
Excellent.
Next, we have Neil. How much time does it usually take to get from the ferry terminal in Manhattan to the start village, Roberto?
Yeah, good time. I would say on average about 90 minutes. The ferry itself is not too long, maybe 20 or 25
30,
minutes. Yeah, thereabouts. The good thing is that, as it typically is the case, they run many of them, but on Marathon Sunday, that morning, they're actually running even more because, I don't think any other time of the year you have that many people trying to get to Staten Island in such a short amount of time. And then after that, if you are taking the bus, a few minutes to walk to the bus, they load up the buses and then ship out. And that's, I did it 1 year. It was under an hour, but, again, between the gaps here, waiting in there. So I would say, bank about 90 minutes. And that's also why at the start of this, we said, avoid the race before the race. So most people, most times, unless you're flying international, you don't think about getting to your destination that much beforehand. But for something like the marathon, you really want to get there and wait and relax versus the opposite, where you're trying to clear security and you're like, oh God, my race is starting in 20 minutes. I've not even put on my race shoes or I still have to do some stretches, etc. So allow yourself as much time as reasonably possible. Hirschben says, thanks guys, you two should start a podcast, crushing these strat sessions. I appreciate it, and I recognize Hirschben from yesterday. I believe they tuned in yesterday, so yeah, I'm not sure what the podcast would be called, but
I don't know.
Yeah, two guys in a chair.
Fire alarm going off. Daniel says, we can wear hydration belts, right? Yeah, you can wear hydration belts. You can also carry your water bottles if you want to use hand. The only thing not allowed, Daniel, is the backpack, kind of a hydration backpack. Camelback kind of makes some of the known brand over-the-shoulder kind of backpacks. But as Roberto said, you can fill those water bottles up throughout the course at the water stations if you need more water as well.
Yeah.
Roberto, Mackenzie asked a question. Are you allowed to carry in liquids to the corrals?
Yes. Unlike TSA or when you're traveling, you don't have to get to Fort Wadsworth and then scull 32 liters of liquid. Yeah, you're allowed to. Obviously, you will be going through security, so they'll check in your bag, make sure it's clear, and your belongings. You want to keep all the runners in the village as safe as possible, not just from COVID and contact points, but obviously any other things like that. But yeah, bring any liquid you want. I mean, within reason. Make sure it's appropriate for the race.
It is also, just keep in mind, you're going through NYPD security, so it is metal detectors at the start line as well. So I only say that just try to keep things before you get past, easily to take out your phones, your wallets, your keys, whatever you have on you. Try to take them out so you can put them in the tray table before that goes to the next bit. Just to make that a little bit faster process. And you're going to take off your belts to go through the metal detectors as well. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, you shouldn't be having too much metal.
Hopefully not too many keys. You never know. Yeah. Andrew, do we have to bring our vaccine card to the race? Andrew, you don't. So when you go to the expo, if you haven't been to the expo yet, you're actually going to check your vaccine card there. And when you're there, you're also going to get one of these orange bracelets that show that you have been kind of approved, I guess the right word, for the rest of the weekend you're here. So as long as you have that, keep that on if you have not been to the expo. But you don't need to carry that with you to the start of the race. Once again, it is an outdoor activity. New York City state guidelines say that you don't need to be vaccinated in outdoor areas.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Leah, do we have to show our vaccine cards to get on the ferry? No, you do not.
It's outdoors, public space. So New York City guidelines say you don't need vaccinated to be outdoors in New York City.
Yeah, you'll have something like this.
Artful Dodger says, I'm in orange. If I move down a corral, do I go to the same color, and do I have to tell someone? Good question. Runners can move back as much as they want. So if you're in orange, you can go blue, you can go green, you can go orange, as long as you move into a higher number. So look at that bib number or a higher corral. So if you're in A orange, you can move to B, C, D, E, F. Also different color. And you don't need to tell anyone. Basically, the corral captains there, the volunteers there, they're going to look at those numbers, the colors that match it, and make sure you're either air where you need to be, or you're moving backwards, which is the higher of them or the higher number of corrals.
Yeah, and you also don't need to tell your friends and family because, again, if they're tracking you, they won't know what sort of movements you're doing. They'll just know that you've crossed the start line at a certain time, and then that's when your race commences for them as well. Thank you, Artful. Cynthia, any tips on where to pin the bib if you might wear layers?
That's a really good question, yeah.
I guess I'll start it. Right now you can't tell at home maybe, but both Steve and I are wearing multiple layers. So if we were about to race today in the way we are, right now my bib would be in the innermost layer, meaning the layer closest to my skin, the layer that I will not remove at all. That way, when I start running, I could take this off, toss it. If I keep running and I keep getting warmer, maybe toss a second layer or however many layers. But I would always say wear on the absolute closest layer to you that you know you won't be removing, because oftentimes you could forget, you put it here, and then you start to run, and then you either remove it and toss it, and that's a rough way to run a marathon bibless. So yeah, make sure that you put it in your innermost layer, especially if you are planning on really layering up for the race.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
Leah, I cut off my wristband last night at the expo. I was supposed to keep it then until Leah, it's okay. If you can make it back to the expo, that'd be great. To get you a brand new one. Hopefully you can make it back. Just talk to them at the front. I actually had two because they put one on very loose the first day. So they put a second one on, and I got a nice secure one, which is nice. Hopefully you can just come on by today or tomorrow, and they give you a new one. Yeah. Roberto, I'll toss this to you. Scott says, I plan to run below my best pace for the first 16 miles. Should I speed up a little at a time? Should I speed up a little at a time after that, or keep the same pace and empty the tank after 20 miles?
Yeah, Scott, I'm trying to read the question so I can really understand it. Yeah, I would say don't run below your pace for the first 16 miles because it's probably going to feel easy. You're being cruise control, especially on 4th Avenue in Brooklyn. So what I would say is run even or maybe even a little bit slower, because the thing is that you could always make up for going out slow. I won't say too slow, but slow-ish, because the worst case scenario is like you get to mile 16 or so and you're like, oh man, I feel really good.
It's a great place to be.
Yeah, versus getting to mile 16 somewhat redlining because you're running below pace. And like I said earlier, the second half of our course is more challenging. So if you get to mile 16 below pace, unless you're obviously having a banner day, if you get to be mile 16 below pace, you're not really leaving much margin for error. You're almost in that zone of what Coach Steve was saying, where bank equals bonk, because you're essentially trying to bank time. And then between miles 16 and 20, mathematically it's just 4 miles, but where those 4 miles are on the course might as well be a completely different race in and of itself, going up First Avenue, Willis Avenue Bridge into the Bronx. So if you could do what you're suggesting and get to mile 20 at sub pace, and then pick up the pace, then you're either a lot better shape, which I won't rule out, than your previous marathon if you've run one before, or ideally not, but you're on a kamikaze mission. So let's just, I would say, get to mile 16 at pace or pace plus. And if you could get to mile 20 the same way, feeling good, then from there you could really start to work. Because trust me, those last 10K or even 5K, you can make up so much time if you feel good as you're tackling for Fifth Avenue, as you're tackling Central Park, the east side, going down Cat Hill. There's a lot of sections where you could really let loose, again, if you have the legs for you. So, yeah, I'd be keen to know how you go. Let us know in our future Facebook chat, because I'm interested now. Yeah.
Good luck.
Krista, could only runners enter the expo, or are we allowed to bring one person, Steve?
Krista, you can bring one person. That person also has the same standards as you with vaccination. So as you enter the expo, you'll be asked to show some sort of proof of vaccination, so you can bring that card with you, or if you have a government-provided app. If you got, New York City had the Excelsior app. Every state kind of has their own. Generally, by now, else just bring the card. But they need to show that as well. You can bring one person. If they're under 12, you don't need to show the vaccination. And both of you guys, no matter what, will be asked to also wear a mask the whole time you are in the expo. Really good question.
Yeah.
Next one we have Jared. Can I change my ferry time at the expo, Roberto?
We don't think so, but like the answer we've been giving out is, just go to the runner services desk if you haven't checked in already at the expo, and ask them, and they'll be able to tell you, because they actually have the most up-to-date info and logistics and what's going on as different runners are coming in, maybe making last-minute changes, or runners, or maybe some of them are unfortunately, pulling out of the race due to travel or injury. So that's the best answer we could give for those sort of last-minute logistical questions. Michaela, can we park at the ferry and take the bus to the fort? Steve, can we do that?
Park at the ferry?
Yeah,
oh, the start line. Oh, sorry. There's no parking at Staten Island Fort, so you had to be dropped off there. There is a place for private cars, so Uber or a friend drop you off. You can do that. The location is on a website under transportation, but you can't park at the finish line, but you can be dropped off.
All right, Steve. Ree wants to know, from your experience, which miles of bathrooms tend to be more or less crowded?
We had that last chat.
I
think it's really interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. So there's no scientific what's more crowded, but I would assume the ones after the Verrazano Bridge, 3 through 5, are probably the most crowded, just because a lot of people didn't go earlier, or they waited till last minute. So those are probably the most crowded. And then as you get later in the race, 7, 8, 9, 10 might be less crowded. The ones on First Avenue after the Queensboro Bridge might be more crowded. So I think the places before bridges are probably the most crowded, and then after the bridges, later on the miles, are less crowded for you. But I think we have the same amount of bathrooms, which is really good for the race this year as we did for previous years, just lowering the numbers. Hopefully less lines out there for the whole course.
Yeah, thank you for that. And before we take the next question, just want to address something, again, making updates as we hear them. The question about if you need to show your wristband to enter the Staten Island Ferry and the fort, we'll get back to you and get a proper update, because we're trying to figure out right now if you still need to, or if your bib will suffice, because obviously if you have your bib, you've gone through several checkpoints to get it, whether it's at the expo or tomorrow, Saturday, outside, showing that you obviously are either fully vaccinated or have presented a negative COVID test within the last 48 hours. So we'll be updating that later on, either in the chat or at a subsequent Facebook course strategy that we'll be doing later today. And yeah, this is the last question coming in. So Dietmar, can you show us the medal?
The medal's at the expo.
Come on, Steve, show us the medal. I know you have it.
Nowhere.
Show us the medal.
That's at the expo.
Yeah, the medal is at the expo, and I've seen so many different things already that I'm not even sure if I've seen it. Actually, yeah, I did see it. Yeah, via email a little bit ago. It's awesome. If you're running the race, you're already excited, but like if you needed one extra thing to really pull you to that finish line, in the latter stages of the race.
It is cool.
Yeah.
It is cool, guys.
Yeah.
It is very gold.
But at the same time, Steve and I obviously work here, but no, we do not have access to the medal, not yet. We'll have to earn it the traditional way. I'm going to run the race on Sunday, and I look forward to receiving it at the finish line. Okay, we'll get some last-minute questions. So yeah, we want to hear from you. Let us know. Lisa, Is the Expo the only spot to buy some of the 50th year gear?
I think we'll also have some at the Run Center, correct me if I'm wrong, at the Run Center, and
Yep,
then also at the Pavilion
Yep.
After the marathon. So you have some finisher gear there as well after the marathon.
Yeah, and it looks pretty good. I think Steve and myself are being fantastic models. So if you want to buy it, it's because of this.
This is what sells.
All right, Maggie, I'm used to pinning my bibs to my right thigh. Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as you keep it on you, make it visible. It's got to be visible, guys. So once again, don't put it on your. Yes, Maggie, for your question, you can put it on your right thigh, left thigh. Don't put it on your back of the thigh. Keep it visible to all runners and security out there. We've got to make sure everyone running has a bib to protect yourself from band-aids out there, and of course, it shouldn't be there. So make sure it is just visible, Mag, is all we're asking you.
Okay, so we just got another late breaking news. The wristbands are for the Expo only. They're not necessary for Staten Island Ferry, the bus, or Fort Wadsworth, because again, your bib itself will suffice for that. So thank you to our producing team out there, letting us. No, I'm just going off of what they see on the camera. But yeah, providing us. We're doing this live. It's a lot of moving pieces, but we appreciate all your questions, your tuning in, your shout outs, and myself and I believe Coach Steve will be doing this again later today. So if you didn't get an opportunity to have your question answered, tune in later, or just tune in because it's also pretty entertaining, is what I've been told. But that's it for this section.
Podcast.
Yeah, we'll cut back to the podcast. Although I like two guys in a chair, even though there's two chairs, but it's a working title. But yeah, on behalf of myself and New York Runners and my colleague and coach Steve, we really appreciate you tuning in, and we wish you the best of luck Sunday. In about a day and a half from now, weather's going to be mint, and you're in great conditions and great state now because you've gotten this core strategy. So best of luck, and we'll see you soon.